Welcome back to Alabama Tech. We're all gas and no breaks going into this first off-season. The staff will be busy wrapping up the current recruiting cycle, starting a new recruiting cycle, and developing the roster on hand. But before we look too far ahead, let's take a moment to review our accomplishments over the past season. We were surprisingly potent through the air as Brian West finished just outside the top 20 in passing yards. Quarterback you, baby. Conversely, our ground game was, for the better part of the season, atrocious. Much of that, of course, had to do with our non-FCS schedule. Tate Sherman led the team in sacks, landing somewhere in the middle of Division I rankings. And lastly, but also most surprisingly, our corners, Thomas Lewis and Chad Jackson, led the nation in solo tackles. Though we landed commitments from Charles Stevens and Corey Brown during the dead period, our lack of scholarship offerings did us no favors down the stretch as they flipped their commitments on signing day, losing Stevens to Marshall and Brown to South Alabama. As expected, we also lost the hometown prospect Lewis Harrison to the University of Louisiana. The spring practice period has allowed us the opportunity to reevaluate our players' strengths and weaknesses and compare that to the incoming talent. John Rivero struggled to produce at the wide receiver position this past season, but his athleticism is undeniable and has been very coachable. Coach Tebow has suggested moving him to running back. Dustin Wright will be lining up at fullback along with maintaining his backup tight end role. Now that we've added depth to the cornerback room, Chad Jackson will be moved to wideout where his skills are best suited. Justin Cox has been moved to the tight end room full-time. And lastly, Paul Folks will put his coverage skills to use at safety and will help provide some much-needed depth at that position. And with spring training behind us, we turn the page over to summer workouts. Due to an unfortunate budgeting oversight, our training facility remains unfurnished while the Musk College of Math and Science will soon be enjoying a multi-million-dollar training center. No worries though, our strength and conditioning coach / marching band director keeps a bootlegged copy of P90X on his laptop at all times. After surviving a summer of grueling calisthenics and sadistic yoga sessions, here are our most improved players by position group. Brian West leads the quarterback room as the most improved at his position group. At running back, Grant McDonald. At fullback, Dustin Wright. Wide receivers, we have Paul Howard and Chad Jackson. At tight end, Justin Cox. At the offensive line, Eric Walker and Eric Dennis. On the defensive line, we have Devin Jones as our most improved. At linebacker, Mark Brown. At cornerback, Vince Williams and J.J. Cantrell. And at safety, Donnie Burgess and Paul Folks. All right, we've arrived at fall camp, and the starting lineup has been a complete overhaul. Freshman Sean Wilson has taken the starting quarterback role. Brian West will serve as his backup. John Rivero has surprisingly taken the running back spot. He will also now be wearing number 22. Chris Newberry will serve as his backup. Newcomers Ross Thomas and Kevin Peters will start at wide receiver along with Chad Jackson, who has been moved to the wide receiver room and will now be wearing number 81. Todd Odom and Corey Burnett will be next up in the rotation. Justin Cox has now solidified his starting role at tight end. Brian D will be his backup. We have a whole new offensive line going into this season, starting with Kyle Nelson at left tackle, Luke Daniels at left guard, Adam Butler holding it down at center, Kenny Dukes at right guard, and returning starter Joseph Burke will be moving over to right tackle. Freshman William Davis will have a prominent role at the edge position, and freshman Scott Burns will be taking first-team reps at nose tackle. We have all new starters at the linebacker spot, starting with JUCO linebacker Aaron Cooper, who will start with Tate Sherman on the inside, while Philip Pratt and Zach Williams will be our starting outside linebackers. New arrivals Jesse Chapman and Daniel Harvey join J.J. Cantrell as our starting cornerbacks. Paul Folks will now be wearing number 24, playing at free safety, and freshman Joel McFarland will take over at strong safety. Jesse Chapman will serve as our return specialist and will be joined by Chad Jackson on kickoffs. As we head into a new recruiting cycle, we've made some tweaks to our house rules going forward. Last year, we could only recruit 3-star talent if they were in-state prospects. This year, we will allow out-of-state prospects, but only if they come from within the pipeline. We will also increase our scholarship limit to 20. Next year, we will have the same restrictions, but we will have the maximum number of scholarships to work with. In the ongoing effort to emulate a realistic Dynasty rebuild, we also have 2 new rules we will implement going forward. First, we will not recruit a player who does not have Alabama Tech within their top 10 schools. Second, we will not offer any recruit a scholarship unless they have been offered by another school first. So, with the new ground rules laid down, here's a brief look at our recruiting board going into the new season. Our top priority is linebacker Tarvarius Dowdle. Our scouting department is very high on him, but we have a lot of ground to cover in order to catch up to Tennessee. Our next priority is offensive tackle Levi Hope. He is another player that the coaches feel is underrated, and it doesn't hurt that we're his current top school. Plus, you can never have too much depth on the O-line. Speaking of depth, we will next need to address adding a kicker and punter in this cycle. Currently, we have no backup options should either Adam Pitts or Landon Cox get hurt, and our special teams duo will both be upperclassmen at the start of next season. We'll be targeting kickers Puka Brombaugh and Elton Lee, as well as punter David Bedell. Our last priority is the tight end room. We'll be targeting Ricky Bell, and we'll be keeping a close eye on Mike Rafdal. The rest of the board we will explore as the season progresses. Last year's scheduling debacle has largely been rectified coming into this season. The training staff will be pleased to know that we only have 3 paycheck games this time around. We start our season in the FCS ranks with a matchup against FCS Midwest, then travel to LA to kick off Southern California's season in the Coliseum. We'll be taking a trip to Norfolk, Virginia in Week 2 to complete our home-and-home series against Old Dominion. Our schedule this year will include matchups against Georgia State, Kent State, and Georgia Southern, 3 teams who were FCS programs not too long ago. In Week 7, we have a paycheck game in Houston, and in Week 11, we travel to Oxford, Mississippi to face Ole Miss in their tune-up game before the Egg Bowl. Lastly, we will conclude our season with the 2nd annual Robot Chicken Bowl in Birmingham, Alabama against rival Jacksonville State. Wins will still come at a premium this year, but I do believe our goals should reflect the hard work that our guys have put in thus far. We have the pieces to be much more competitive this year, so our goals are simple. Keep games close and find a way to win. If we can double our win total from last season and finish strong on the recruiting trail, it will have been a successful season. But what do you think? Comment below and place your predictions for the coming season's win total. Then, come on over to Part 2, where we will be kicking off Year 2 of the Phillip Rivers era. For all of you who have endured this off-season drama, you deserve the Premium Club seats. And if you got any entertainment value out of this episode, then please make that subscribe button in a dark-lit alley, slip that notification bell a paper sack full of $100 stacks to persuade future uploads to choose your recommendation feed. Well, that's all the puns and time that I've got for this video, but in case I don't see you again, I've been Joseph, the Cruit'n Finger of Doom, and we'll see you in the next video.